How you
How's it
doing?
going?
Good. Cheers. We got some wine
It's
again.
good.
So cheers.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know how to toast now.
You got your wine?
There's
There
the
you go.
camera right
There
there.
we go, right in
Yep.
the camera. Good to see you
Skabooch.
again. So
Hmm.
my sort of vision for this chat was to just kind of talk about our respective philosophies of art slash poetry, poetry slash art,
Yeah.
just to give people that might be thinking about going on this trip an idea what they might encounter when they're just talking to us or discussing things. I don't know.
Yeah.
And of course, I would love to keep this conversation to about 10 minutes.
Sure.
Now, 5 minutes each to talk about our philosophy of art is either way too long or way too short. I don't know. Any thoughts?
Maybe we should do the weave here and a little bit on one thing, and then
The
a little
weave.
ping pong because it kind of scares me when you think about like philosophy of art because
Yeah.
there's hardly a statement out there that I would disagree with. I mean, we know that art is life enhancing in different ways. We know that art can put us in touch, with the human condition in ways that you know playing baseball can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although you certainly learn a lot about life in baseball too. So I was thinking that I really have three answers on that issue. One is about the big picture. Where does art fit into being a human being? But then I would have more to say about how I make art.
Right.
And then I would have more to say about how I coach somebody who's trying to, work their own process, like the kind of people that might go on this trip with us.
Right.
So if you have the grand statement and you want to go first with your grand statement,
Oh,
then we can do that.
I don't have any kind of grand statement. And I have this Annie Dillard quote I was going to read, but I'm not going to read it because I think it's too long. But it's about searching for art in the gaps of things. And
Yeah,
I honestly think my basic philosophy of art is just to try to see what is not seen.
yeah,
And coming from a visual thinker, a visual person, a person that,
yeah,
is making paintings and looking at things and drawing them and stuff. I just think that, like finding beauty in the mundane is one way to
yeah,
think about it. But then I have problems with that too because it's just not about beautifulness. It's not just about mundanity. It's, about all kinds of things. But I just think it's, again, just sort of finding things in the gaps, the in between spaces, the spaces that you're not supposed. I had an exercise that I did with my drawing students years ago, but my life drawing students, and I would say, draw, I'd say, okay, here's the still life, but start the drawing over there, like in the
hmm,
corner of the room,
yeah, yeah,
and just kind of make your way to the still life. Don't center yourself on the still life to start. Think
yeah,
about shift your gaze a bit to the right or to the left or to the up or down or whatever. And
yeah.
that's kind of my basic philosophy, my default position as a painter is not to sort of go right at the subject, but shift a bit.
Yeah, when in writing classes, we would often have people that would want to write about somebody who was really had a really big effect on their life for some reason,
Hmm.
positive or negative. And oftentimes they would be stymied, and they just because they would do that, they would go right for, this is my grandmother. She was the most beautiful person in the world and stuff like that. And invariably, I would, suggest that they do something like you did, like, don't write about your father, write about your father's jacket.
Yeah, yeah, perfect.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, and
Mhm.
and write about the the oatmeal that your grandmother made for you on the mornings when only you and she were home. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and the thing is, what that does is it puts you in touch in a very sensory way with a scene or with or well, how emotions are connected with the senses, and
Hmm.
so in a way, it's an outer thing that can let you deeper into the experience, but also a reader.
Right, right. It's like the idea of when you mentioned that about the jacket, the first thing I thought of was the smell. Like
Yeah.
how do you express the smell of something? And smell
Oh,
is such
yeah.
an important emotion. Well, it's not an emotion; it's a sensory experience that
Right.
really
But it
locks us
connects you with
into
memory and
what's
stuff like
that?
that. But it connects you with memory and it
Oh yeah, yeah,
connects
yeah.
you
It's
with, yeah,
critical. It's critical. And so,
yeah,
and I think most of the time the senses like smell or touch or the physical senses are more they sort of contribute more to the making of art than anything, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. 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 I mean, an artist making a poem or making a painting is having a conversation with him or herself, but ultimately it's a conversation with a viewer or a reader too. And I
Right.
think sometimes those textures, those, other sensory details are the sort of the portal through
Yeah,
which
like a
the
catalyst.
inside of the artist talks
Yeah.
to the inside of the other person. And, another thing that, I would often talk to students about was, and I know you do this in your class too, it's in terms of embracing the strange,
Right,
and
right.
not in the sense where, just for the sake of strangeness you're embracing it, but we're so often looking for a comfort zone,
Mhm.
and sometimes at the expense of our art. And the nice thing about this trip is that part of the strangeness is always is almost wrapped up in the trip. I
Right,
mean,
it's just around the
you're
corner.
in you're
Yeah.
in a new place. There's maybe if you don't know French, there's a language that you're hearing all the time that's a little bit mysterious to you, but that really sets you up for starting to notice those things that you need to do as an artist or a writer. You can't just think about, well, what's my philosophy for making a poem? No, someone on the street that you're walking on now has just dropped her purse, and a lot of things have spilled out on the cement. What are you going to notice?
Yeah,
Things
yeah.
like that. Uh, and when you're on tour, you're in a new place, everything is new. Although there are obviously gestures of kindness that are international and universal,
Right.
but there are things that are strange, and that can be the way into a piece of writing or
And
or
and
a
I and,
painting.
and I think that the kind of cool thing about the trips you and I put together is we embrace that idea wholeheartedly. So rather than, I think a lot of tours, at least the ones I've seen, or the
Yeah,
one I was on years ago, kind of protect the people from those sort of things. There
yeah,
becomes kind of there's an insulation that occurs between the person on the trip and those sort of odd experiences that can come. And I think we just, by our nature and the intent of the trip, is to kind of open ourselves up to those possibilities.
yeah. And that's actually another posture for somebody who wants to make art, is a kind of an openness to surprise.
Yeah,
um not taking risks that are going to endanger your life, but taking risks in the way you view things, in the
yeah.
way you record things on a piece of paper or on a page or on a canvas. Um,
Yeah, the way your world is framed. I mean, we all
yeah,
frame things in certain ways, and I think a lot of people just kind of aren't aware of how they frame things. And I think one of the things, at least another idea that's very much part of my philosophy of, I guess, art, is just
yeah,
how do I look at things? How do I frame things? Like questioning that and shifting it. And, again, my
yeah,
illustration of you starting a still life over in the corner instead of right centering is about changing the frame, the way you think about that subject. And I think travel actually reorients a person to think about their life in a different way, even potentially. So
yeah, yeah. And you and I, over the last couple of trips, have come up with some simple sort of prompts that can get people started if they're
yeah,
feeling a little self-conscious. I remember when we went to Chile for the first time, even before we took students with us, one of the first things you did was draw your breakfast before you ate it.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's a good practice, because you're going to have breakfast every day,
yeah,
and and you want to get to your breakfast.
yeah. You're hungry.
So that would encourage like a quick sort of
Yeah, yeah,
contour
yeah,
drawing or something like that. And one of the prompts that I really like, because it opens itself up to every kind of thing, is to start with an image that comes from the sky, start from an image that comes from the ground, and then just to be kind of a little offbeat, is talk about um, something that's kind of lodged in the history of your left hand.
hmm
Something your left hand has done. And that, because then it's a spatial prompt, but then a memory prompt.
Yeah, I love that.
And
Pretty
it kind
cool.
of and that could be that could end up with a 3-line poem, but that could end up with a 30-line poem,
Yeah,
because you want to keep well, there's more than one thing up there in the air.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and that's so. Um, I kind of feel our job, when we talk to people about their own art making, is not to tell them what to do or to tell them what art is or what's legit art or what's illegit art, but rather to help them over those first hurdles.
Yeah.
The people that have
Absolutely.
never watercolor,
Hmm.
watercolor painted before, or the people who've never written a poem before. Well, uh, here's an idea to get two lines into the poem, and then you're off to the races.
It's about giving permission. I really think
Yeah.
it's about giving permission and saying you can do it, and don't worry about the results.
Hmm. Yep.
It's just get going. And I think you and I are both experts at that because we both taught many, many young students, people that were intimidated by the process or intimidated by the idea of making art or writing poetry. And so, part of our, I think, skill is to get people to kind of relax and, not
Yeah.
be intimidated and just kind of get making things.
Yeah. There, a lot of people are afraid of failure. And basically, I think we both believe in failing better.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Failing upward.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And did you really learn how to ride a bike the first time you got on it,
Oh
or
God.
did you fall over a few times?
I'm still learning how to paint. I really am. I'm still
Yeah,
learning.
yeah. Actually, that's another good thing too, because I know as an older artist, I'm the thing that I'm really trying to avoid, as is self-imitation.
Right, right.
This worked for me for 20 years. All I need to do is, turn on that machine.
Ugh,
Yeah.
yeah,
And if you're going to try to avoid self-imitation, you have to embrace failure,
yeah,
because you're pushing beyond the edge of your own talent if you're going to try to do something new. And and then and again, I think the the situation of being on a trip in a place you've never been before, it actually encourages the freedom that we're trying to
hmm
encourage. What do
hmm
I have to lose?
hmm
I'm in Nice. I'm not going to see these people again.
Right, 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 right.
You know, and and I don't have to show them my watercolor if I don't want to. So
But we hope they do.
yeah, well, each other, but but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
but the person walking on the street.
Okay, well, I think that's awesome. What do you think?
Great.
Good?
Yep.
Okay,
Worth a
I'm gonna
toast.
cheers. Yeah, here's the our trip. Hey, you have a
Yep.
nice wine glass there. I got one of these cheap.
Oh, yeah, I haven't broken it yet. So
Yeah, that's good.